Hello everybody, Adam here again from 442. Now, Manchester United are out of the Champions League. Would have that been a surprise at the start of the season given the group they were in? Yes. Was it after what happened in Copenhagen and Istanbul? No, because they had to beat Bayern Munich, and of course, they didn't. So, yeah, things aren't looking good at Old Trafford, are they? However, there is something else that has arisen because of Manchester United's exit from the Champions League. So, if you cast your mind back to the summer, UEFA actually fined Manchester United €300,000 for breaching financial fair play regulations over a 4-year period from 2019 to 2022. And recently, Manchester United's debt has surpassed the £1 billion mark, and they're having a bit of touch and go misdemeanors with FFP as well in general. Now, this is a cause for concern given the exit in the Champions League. So of course United will now be playing domestic football only for the remainder of the season, and with Jim Ratcliffe coming in for that 25% shareholder ownership of the club, they're in a bit of a financial transitional phase, and they really could have done with the added revenue from getting through the group stage and perhaps beyond, or even just getting into the Europa League. But no, their losses have been completely cut, and they could have made a whole lot more to help supplement both the wage bill and just the financial integrity and structure of the club. So let's break the numbers down. Every single team earns £13.3 million for just getting to the Champions League group stages and qualifying alone. And then for the 1 win and 1 draw that Manchester United got in the group this season, that added an extra £3.2 million in tournament winnings as well on top of that, which in the grand scheme is not a lot because... So they would have got an extra £8.25 million had they escaped the group miraculously somehow, and then if they'd have gone even further and got to the quarterfinals, that would have been an extra £9.1 million on top of that, and then an extra £10.7 million for getting to the semi-finals as well. So a lot of money missed out on for Manchester United. And just an additional little figure as well, not one that really concerns Manchester United because they would have never won the Champions League, but if you do win the Champions League, you get £58.6 million in prize money on top of that, which is a whole transfer fee for a big player. I'll say a big player. He's gone for 50 million recently. Fred went for... He could have got him another Fred, if they'd have won it. Now, of course, it was absolutely obvious, wasn't it, that Erik ten Hag didn't really have the funds at his disposal this summer that he'd have perhaps liked. You look at Johnny Evans coming in on a free transfer to try and bolster the squad, but really, he came in on a free. Then Amrabat as well, who you would assume United probably wanted on a permanent transfer, but ended up having to cut their losses and pay £8.5 million this season to have him on a 1-year loan with an option to extend or buy him permanently next year, which will probably cost in the range of £20 million. That's not set in stone yet, but really having to penny pinch just to get certain players that they want, and they've got no financial muscle in the market as it stands. Of course, in the summer as well, Manchester United brought in Mason Mount and Andre Onana for pretty big fees, and it says here in this Athletic article that every prospective deal has had to go through what one of the club figures calls the financial sausage machine. Everything is being calculated. Is that okay on FFP? Does it leave us enough room to do what we want this summer on players? But given the fact that they've now missed out on the prize money from getting through the group stage, you're probably going to assume that Ten Hag's going to have a similar conundrum in January as well, because an extra sort of 15 or so million on top of his transfer funds would have really helped to at least try and get him something if he wanted to bring someone in to bolster the squad. I'm not necessarily saying he does want to bring someone in January, but you'd assume if he wanted to, he'd need a bit of dough because there isn't much knocking about at Manchester United at the moment. Now, according to numerous reports, such as The Athletic, United are slightly concerned by FFP and the fine that was, of course, issued in the summer, but there's no immediate pressure for the club to drum up funds through player sales. That is what the reports are saying. However, I think there's evidence to the contrary. If you actually look at the players that Erik ten Hag has tried to offload or has successfully offloaded in the 18 months that he's been here, you look at Cristiano Ronaldo, David De Gea, Paul Pogba, Fred, the likes of these players which were on extremely high wage bills. And now there's also murmurings that Rafa Varane might be on the way out too after apparently falling out with Ten Hag, but he is also on a preposterous amount of money. It seems to me like Erik ten Hag is trying to offload these high wage bill players and perhaps the deadwood and fringe players in the squad to give himself and Manchester United more flexibility with FFP, because right now everything is very stringent. So what is all the beef between FFP and Manchester United? Well, Manchester United lost a total amount over the pandemic of £234 million in COVID-related losses between 2019 and 2021. Now in 2022 there was a monitoring period for UEFA that surveyed all the clubs in Europe, the top level clubs, to see what losses they were making and how they were adjusting for these losses, and United's stance was that they were unable to adjust for the 47 million of COVID losses in that 2022 monitoring period because of an unforeseen change in how UEFA treated those losses during the transition to its revised financial sustainability regulatory framework. So United's stance is that UEFA changed this regulatory framework and this surveying of all the teams that they like to do with too short notice for them to be able to adjust their losses, and the 47 million loss in this case. So what they've had to do, United, is cut losses basically to other departments of the club. So the youth infrastructure, the women's team, for example. And also to things like community work as well, which is quite sad, really, because that's so integral to every football club in England, really, especially the top ones. You know, the sense of community that brings. Having to make cuts in those departments is quite a sad state of affairs, truth be told. It's believed now that the club are actually going to deduct between 50 and 60 million in these three areas. So the foundations, the youth development, and also the women's team as well. So it seems like United are chasing their own tails, really, in terms of trying to fix this financial situation. And what season did it really go wrong? Well, the reading here states that it's probably 21-22 when they failed to qualify for the top four that season. Now, of course, we all know that the Glazers have never invested any of their own money into Manchester United since taking them over in 2005. And to quote them, that is for the purposes of profitability and sustainability. So no money of their own has gone into the club. We know this. But what this means is that United's losses have not been able to exceed the standard £15 million limit. Yet, this only became an issue when a miserable 21-22 season on the pitch was just as miserable off it. United posted a pre-tax loss of £150 million, which is by far the biggest loss over the preceding decade. So after this pre-tax £150 million loss in 2022, United have really had to strike a fine balance financially. And what they actually did after Manchester United didn't get into the top four that season was reduce the wages of the whole squad by 25%. This, of course, is now lifted because Erik ten Hag actually secured Champions League football last season. But without this added revenue given from the, getting through the groups and advancing further into the tournament, they're now having to still pay out this huge wage bill that they didn't have to a year ago, having not had the prize money to kind of help supplement it. So everything is very stringent for Manchester United financially at the moment. And this is one element of the problems at the club right now. So what will actually happen to Manchester United financially, and will they be able to avoid exceeding a breach and then obviously being punished for it? Well, United will have a reasonable idea because in the coming months, publication of the club's full accounts are expected to land. So I guess we'll have to wait till then, but they will know behind the scenes whether there's a breach coming their way or whether they've spent within check. And moving forward for United, well, it actually says here, even if United have successfully avoided a breach for 2022-2023, the club still faces a challenge to stay on the right side of the limit this season right now. Crucially, the next 3-year monitoring period will not include the COVID-19 adjustments, but United's huge 2021-22 pre-tax loss, which was of course 150 million, will still be part of the equation, hence the need to tread carefully in the market this summer and the summers moving forward. And as for any punishments, while clubs who exceed the lower 15 million profitability and sustainability limit without secure funding to cover their losses can have budgets limited and transfer spending restricted by the league's board to ensure they meet their financial obligations. So there we go, that is just one problem at Manchester United at the moment. I'm sure me and Adam are going to have plenty of time after the weekend to talk about the other 50 million if Liverpool do what I think most of us expect them to do, but you never know in the Premier League, do you? We shall see, but it's just the problems are piling up over on the red half of Manchester, particularly for Erik ten Hag, who at the moment must be so stressed. Anyway, guys, yes, you can let me know in the comments what you think the future holds for Manchester United. Do you think they'll be able to continue spending like they have done in previous years based on the evidence here? It doesn't really look like it, even with Jim Ratcliffe coming in with that 25% ownership, but you can let me know what you think. Do not forget to subscribe, guys. Hope you have a lovely day. I've been Adam Monk. Goodbye.